Now, there is a giver of the bribe and the receiver of the bribe. How do you interrogate the receiver while the giver is still walking? You have killed the matter from the onslaught.
The IGP must expedite a very quick investigation into it and possibly come out with some level of prosecution. We need to protect the integrity of the Electoral Commission.
So that is our show for tonight. Dr. Kingsley Nyako, Professor Kingsley Nyako, I should actually say, a lecturer, a former lecturer at the University of Ghana, who is now a member of parliament, caught in the storm of allegations that he was trying to influence electoral officials. But it's also brought to fore the bigger conversation during the by-election, the claims that the governing New Patriotic Party was scheming to buy votes. That was the allegation of the independent candidate, Kwaku Diomi. And that election has since concluded. The New Patriotic Party has retained the seat. But the conversation about vote buying is not going anywhere. And in Africa, this is something that we see a lot of times. So tonight on the show, we have some interesting minds from here in Ghana and outside the country, a member of parliament as well, people who really know about how some of these things work, and brought in the conversation to ask whether or not citizens themselves are involved in this. Because if someone is buying, then it means someone is selling. We connect after this break.
When you want to eat, just Momo it. Tired of the long queues in the supermarket? Pay with Momo. When you really want that beautiful new blouse, just Momo it. When you want to get a trim and get fresh to impress you know who, just Momo it. When you need to pay your utility bills and domestic staff, Shani Momo. When you want to send love to the family back home, send some Momo. Join the millions of MTN Momo users all over Ghana and live life the brighter way. So just Momo it. MTN.
Son, we are so proud of you for setting up this hospital. I really love those hospital beds and waiting chairs. By the way, did you import them?
No, Dad, I didn't. I actually got them from Kindle Books and Stationery right here in Ghana.
Wow. We also bought our office supplies, safes, executive desks and chairs from Kingdom, and they gave us expert advice on how to set up our office.
Guys, that makes 3 of us. I also got our sofa and bedroom sets, plus our dining hall furniture for our new home from Kingdom.
Wow, Mom, that makes 4 of us. I usually get my stationery items from Kingdom. And my teacher also mentioned that our classroom furniture was provided by Kingdom.
So there you have it. Whenever you're thinking about setting up an office or acquiring furniture for your home, etc., Kingdom Books and Stationery should be your first point of call. With over 40 years experience in the industry, we stock and supply a wide variety of globally sourced office and home furniture, stationery and equipment. Visit our head office, Osu Akwaje, or our office near the Osu Stadium. We're also in Tema Community 1, opposite Olam SHF, Kumasi KNUST campus, UCC Cape Coast, and now at the Marina Mall, Airport City. Or call us 0302-764101, 764209, or 762792. Visit our website, www.kingdomgh.com.
Water is needed all day, all night. So, remember Syntex tank all day, all night. 7 years warranty. Select any color for free. In no the crack, in no the spoil. Call Accra on 0244 335 168. Kumasi 0505 555 666. Syntex tank. A strong, a tough. Water is needed all day, all night. So, remember Syntex tank all day, all night. 7 years warranty. Select any color for free. In no the crack, in no the spoil. Call Accra on 0244 335 168. Kumasi 0505 555 666. Syntex tank. A strong, a tough.
Choboy! We have a new leader in in town. Obiarentie. Amanfo. Meda mo sibebre. When him say my baby, maybe more charcoal for whiter teeth. More charcoal. Not only that, maybe lemon. More lemon. Zinc for fresher breath. More zinc. And fluoride for stronger teeth.
Introducing the new President Charcoal packed with more power with a combination of charcoal and lemon for naturally whiter teeth. Grab yours now. This advert is FDA approved.
Hello, my name is Mami Akua, an entrepreneur and a mother of two. My work keeps me busy most of the time and sometimes it takes me away from my family. But the safety and health of my family is very important to me. As a working mother, I cannot afford to take any chances when it comes to matters of health. That is why I signed up for a family healthcare plan from Equity Health Insurance. My family and I have access to over 700 hospitals, clinics, opticians, dentists, pharmacies, and diagnostic centers across the length and breadth of Ghana. With Equity Health Insurance, I no longer have to worry about medical bills. Anytime a member of my family visits a hospital, Equity Health Insurance has got my family and I covered. What about you? Who has got you covered?
Call Equity Health Insurance on 050-660-7910 and talk to them about your family health needs now. Visit equityhealthinsurance.com for more information. Equity Health Insurance, here for you.
There is time for everything, including exclusive breastfeeding by mothers, which starts within the first 30 minutes baby is born till the time the child is 6 months old. Grandma,
Grandpa,
husbands,
let's all come on board Good Life and insist that our child takes only breast milk for the first 6 months. No food, no water, no gripe water.
Breast milk has all the nutrients the child needs to grow strong and healthy. So I ask, how is your good life?
Remember that exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months is best for baby, and good growth starts with right nutrition at birth. Good Life, live it well. It's an everyday thing. Good Life from Ghana Health Service and partners with support from USAID.
Welcome back to Ghana Connect. My name is Kwaku Asante. And on the show, I told you that it's almost overflogged that politicians buy votes. But they buy because someone else is selling their vote. And as the name itself suggests, vote buying because there's a transaction between someone who is buying and someone who is selling. The politician buying and an electorate ready to receive something in return for that. But it's the bigger question to ask tonight on the show is that this concept, based on the assumption that voters are in the electoral marketplace, selling their votes to prospective buyers, in this case politicians. If there are no sellers, will there be buyers? And it's a big conversation because almost every election we keep having this conversation. And we seem to put a lot of focus on the persons who are giving the money or giving something, expecting something in return. This time you vote. So many people asking people to go into booth with their phones because of the transaction that have taken place. And so we have a big poll that is running on Twitter currently asking the question about the Ghana's vote buying epidemic, whether citizens and the electorate themselves are as guilty as the politician vote buyer. Please go on there to our social media, Twitter in particular, X, and vote. We want to gauge what politicians and the public generally think about what is a really important conversation that must be had. And so tonight on the show, we have some really brilliant minds coming around the table to really drill down on this issue and get to the heart of it. But before that, listen to this.
Influence them in that public space. If I were to influence them, do you think that I would do it in that public space?
No, the manner in which it was.
No, I'm saying that if I wanted to, do you think that I would have done that in the public space?
So what was it?
That's what I'm saying, that when I'm done, I will talk about. But what I want to put on record is that I've not bribed anybody. I've not influenced anybody to vote or to do anything untoward for my candidate. I've not done that. I cannot.
As the two, you could see two officers were closer to the person who gave the passage, whatever it is. So we have asked them to stay aside for us to finish with the election. Then when we finish with the election, then we'll go into the issue and see what was it. Was it envelope? If it is an envelope, what was the content? What is it meant for?
This MP should be arrested by this time. Now there is a giver of the bribe and the receiver of the bribe. How do you interrogate the receiver while the giver is still walking? You have killed the matter from the onslaught.
The IGP must expedite a very quick investigation into it and possibly come out with some level of prosecution. We need to protect the integrity of the Electoral Commission.
As the politician vote by. Do you agree? Please do send us a message on WhatsApp 055-1111-997 on our WhatsApp console. I'll be very, very happy to hear from you. But let's get down to the brilliant minds connecting with us on this important topic. Ras Mubarak is a former member of parliament for Kumbugu. He's a well-known journalist as well. Ras, it's good to have you connect with us on the show again.
Thank you very much, Kwaku. And what an interesting topic. Coming on such an important, at the back of a by-election in our country. And I'm looking forward to sharing views and opinion with your listeners and viewers and, of course, panelists.
Right. Thank you very much, Ras. Raymond Tamaklo is also an activist and connect with us. Raymond, it's good to have you join us.
Thank you very much for having me, Kwaku, and a very good evening to our cherished listeners.
Well, Mohammed is a Nigerian journalist, and Nigeria's democracy on the African continent is such a huge one, and we see a lot of these things there. So Mohammed gives us some really interesting perspective from the Nigerian conversation. Mohammed, it's good to have you connect with us on the show.
Thank you very much.
Well,
my pleasure.
Derek joins me in studio. Derek Kwaku Sishandov. Derek, it's good to have you connect with us again.
Yes, it's always a pleasure, and I look forward for a very enthralling discussion as always.
So let's dive right into the conversation. Let me start from you, Ras Mubarak. I'm not sure if Professor Kingsley Nyako met you when you were in Parliament, but I mean, you are all in this business of politics together. First, your brief reaction about all that has happened whilst we try to get to zoom into the conversation.
Well, to be honest, so it's World Press Freedom Day, so congratulations to you and your colleagues. And I do hope that you would increase the activism, especially on issues surrounding corruption, which is a big canker in our society. Kingsley Nyako caught red-handed. He says it wasn't him, it wasn't bribery. The first question I asked myself was that in his previous, employment as a lecturer, if during an examination, one of his students were to offer him a fat envelope, because from the expression on his face, he was looking hungry. How would he have interpreted that? It's a clear case of somebody attempting to induce an electoral process, which by itself is a criminal activity, and getting caught red-handed. But Kwaku, I'm quite surprised that the public is surprised. I'm quite surprised that the public seem outraged, by this, because this is not the first time we have had incidences of vote buying, of attempts to induce voters in one way or the other, whether it were a general election or a political party primary. This has been with us for many, many years. And election in, election out, year in, year out, we lament, we highlight, we talk about it. Nothing, absolutely nothing happens, And the impunity continues, is perpetuated, and it's quite eroding, the small democracy that we have. And if we're not really, really careful, we're getting to a point where drug barons, where criminals, would determine for us in Ghana who gets to be elected as an assembly member or a member of parliament or even the president, because we don't have clear laws on, campaign financing in the country, and we don't know the sources of financing campaigns in our country. That already in itself is a big headache. I don't know whether you saw the UN Office on Drugs and Crime. They issued a report in 2022. It's a huge indictment, on our country. The report is titled "Corruption in Ghana," released in 2022. And Kwaku, it said that 10.3% of adult population reported that they were personally offered money in exchange for vote before or during the 2020 election. If this is not scary, if this is not worrying, I don't know what would. And what we're seeing today is a manifestation of levels of impunity that have been allowed to simmer, to go on, during elections for a very, very long time. This is not the first time that we've heard about vote buying in our country. This is not the first time that persons associated with a political party, have been seen or caught attempting to influence an electoral process. And as I've indicated, nothing whatsoever has happened over the years. And clearly, this is a huge indictment, not just on, political office holders and political parties. It is a huge indictment on the NCCE, which is responsible for, advocating and for educating people on some of these things. It is an indictment on our school system, because you ask yourself, if the NCC is not doing it, what is happening to, the teaching of civic responsibility in our school system, whether at the primary, secondary, or even the tertiary levels? It is also an indictment on churches, on schools, on mosques, on traditional leaders. Everybody is guilty as charged for having allowed this to fester, forgetting us where we are today. And the sooner we sat back and said, look, this can't go on any longer. Here's the case of a sitting member of parliament falling foul of the law. Let us punish him in accordance with our laws. And I don't see why this should be so difficult. I'm sure you followed the local level elections in the UK yesterday. The former Prime Minister of the UK, Boris Johnson, who, as a matter of fact, was the one under whose tenure a law was passed that required for...
Hello, Ras. Well, it seems I've lost Ras there. I can't seem to hear Ras Mubarak, but Ras Mubarak will come back in again. And Ras Mubarak seemed to lay really the foundation for the conversation in a very, very interesting manner. So time to bring in Shandoff. Shandoff, your reaction about Professor Nyako, and you were in psychology department in Legon. I don't know if he taught you or something of the sort. But generally, how bad is the situation? Because you've seen the picture, you've heard from Ras Mubarak, the picture he paints.
Well, in one breath, I'm outrightly appalled. But then if you were to explore and review the evidence properly, given the fact that it has not been conclusively determined that it was money that was in the envelope, you will be thinking twice about whether you should still spit fire on him or you should let him walk in fresh air, free of any guilt. But regardless of, the unestablished guilt, the conduct in itself is questionable. Now, it's questionable in the sense that we are expected to, at every given point, especially somebody of his caliber and looking at his standing, he's expected to, as it were, distance himself from the entire electoral process by way of interaction with the system or the personnel on the ground or any other thing that is remotely connected to the election, so that at the end of the day, the outcome may not have any stain. But for the fact that he put himself in a situation that has now divided opinions in the very first place, I find that to be extremely unfortunate. Rust started the conversation with an analogy, saying that if he were supervising an exams in his former employment and as a lecturer, of course, at the psychology department, and something of this nature happened, how was he going to react to it? It was indeed a very valid question. You do not set any circumstance that can, as it were, raise questions about credibility and integrity as we are having. So his involvement in the very first place is questionable. If it were properly a medical report, like the explanation has said, what was his place? I mean, how? I don't know to be a medical doctor or
no,
any.
For now, it's established that it has nothing to do with medical. That it was
right?
Money that he said that. He asked those persons whether they've eaten. They said the food from EC hadn't come, so he gave them something for lunch.
Okay, that is even worse. That is extremely reprehensible. That is disgusting. He had no business going there then. I mean, I've been following, but I was not even sure if it was money. But if it was properly money, he had no business feeding personnel of the Electoral Commission, except the Commission had not voted funds to cater for their refreshment around that point or any other need of theirs. That is not his duty. Even if that were to be his duty, the execution, or if he felt that he had to extend any gesture of charity, it wasn't in that manner. Kwaku is absolutely condemnable.
Absolutely condemnable. And Mohammed, you are in Nigeria. Your elections are so big. How big is the situation of vote buying and vote selling in Nigeria?
Thank you for this question. It's really unfortunate. In our own case, it's something that is very big because it's there all over the news. There's nothing to be really ashamed of or something that you want to cover, say, in terms of patriotism. I don't consider that patriotism at all when we are unable to tell ourselves the truth so that we understand what the problem is and then look for solutions to solve them. Having said that, vote buying in our own case, actually starts from the political parties level. Even in trying to win the primary elections before the general elections, these politicians know that they needed to settle their members, quite well for them to be given that ticket to represent the party, particularly the Top Guns party. I don't want to mention name, but this is what is happening. In fact, now, what is even more appalling is the fact that because of the value of the Naira is actually going down, these people resort, this set of politicians, very many of them, but large number of them, actually resort more into using foreign currencies. For instance, the US dollar is very popular. I mean, the most popular currency. This is what they use, in order to garner support because virtually the Naira is losing its value, from their members. So, having said that, again, if you go to the general elections, it's something that is very, very common. And these politicians is shocking. They understand the psychology of man. A hungry man is an angry man. And by the time you keep poverty revibrating and recirculating amongst people, to some extent, they have no choice rather than to, just succumb to any kind of situation. And it's really sad. So these guys understand that, majority of the population are living below poverty line. What do? During elections, you just throw some few Naira words at them. Definitely, you are able to get their vote. And in so many occasions, these things are captured in the media. They are captured on camera. But because of weak policies, weak institutions, these politicians get away with it, and it's so unfortunate. But it's a common problem across Africa, and I'm sure even in Nigeria. And the solution is simple: the people needed to get out of poverty. And if you're waiting for government to do that, in my own little opinion, I might be wrong, is a very big challenge. And education as well. Most people do not understand that when you are giving, let me use the dollar, for instance, $1, which is equivalent of what most guys share during election, $1 to $5, not more than $5, $10 maximum. You get these things, to shut your mouth, not so that you are unable to ask for your right in the next 4 years.
So,
How
Mohammed,
appalling can life be?
why do the pendulum usually swing? Are people making more of the demand, or the politicians really just know the system and they are just foisting this on the people?
No, the politicians are making more of, the offer. But like I said earlier, because of the situation on ground, the kind of poverty on ground, when they make this offer, people hardly resist it. In fact, it's very challenging that people resist it because, you never can tell where you are getting your next meal from. So if someone is offering you $5, $10 now, and you are not sure where your next meal will come from, you are more likely to accept that.
I mean, Raymond, so look at the situation in Nigeria and you compare that to the situation in Ghana. People usually say that Africa is a continent because it talks about the impoverishing of the people, so much so that when it's time for election, these people just take these handouts and they are of such gratitude to the politicians. The linkage is so glaring.
Thank you very much, people. And so we must have accept in this conversation that the issue of vote buying and patronage politics has always been with us. In time past, it used to be very clandestine. It used to be shrouded in a certain bleak secrecy. But today, it is more open. It is the manifestation we saw recently in the Ejisu by-election, where the member of parliament for Kwadasu attempted or even, decided to induce or influence electoral officers performing official duties on elections ground. Now, people, I think that we need to condemn this situation, the prevalence of vote buying and patronage politics squarely, fairly, and very, very firmly. Because if we allow this situation to fester, then we are posing a certain great threat to our democracy. We are shifting from a democracy to a certain culture of aristocracy, where a certain few privileged people with resources come to us and then buy power from us. And in their singular and selfish ambitions to impose themselves into the corridors of power, they continue to raid the limited resources of our country. And so it is something that we must condemn squarely and then firmly. If we are acknowledging the supply, we must also recognize the demand. So where politicians are supplying, goods, resources, monies to people for their votes, we have people also demanding politicians and persons who are vying for positions of authority to pay certain amounts to them before they vote for them. And so if we are going to condemn politicians, we must also condemn the citizens, the electorate, for also demanding for monies from these people in exchange for their votes. But people, it stands to reason why vote buying today has become so prevalent. Why today we have the citizens themselves, the electorate themselves, demanding for this handouts from our politicians before they vote for them. It is because there is a certain impoverishment, poverty that has engulfed our country. In our specific situation in Ghana, we know about the economy, where affording 3 square meal today in Ghana has become a situation of luxury. We have situations where the limited resources of our country or the opportunities in this country is shared on the basis of who you know or who knows you. And so for the individuals, they find the situations or the events of elections as an opportunity to also get their fair share or a mega share of the resources of our country. Okay, we want it now. Give us what you can now, because we know when you go, you will not bring any results to us. We are already impoverished. We don't know what to eat. People are playing on information 001, 10, 101, and all of those things. And so these are some of the reasons. Now, we also have a situation where there's non-performance of governance and lack of governments to crack the grip on situations of corruption. And so,
Raymond, you make a good point that I really want to interrogate. Please hold it there for me. It's really interesting, the point you make. It ties into the point Mohammed made from Nigeria about the impoverishment of the people that who then in turn demand. So Ras Mubarak, you've been to Parliament before. You've been engaged in high level stakes campaign from 2008 up until now. This view that those of you who bear political power simply impoverish the people so that they have to depend on you for handouts to survive. And also, quite importantly, that these people feel like there is nothing they get from the political class. So the election season, that's what we call delegates, cocoa season. They say that, listen, this is the time to get something, and then because vote for free, don't get anything in the next 4 years, or vote and take some money. Some people seem to think that the latter is getting some more benefit than the former.
Let me address the issue about whether or not what the Honorable Kingsley Nyauku gave us money or not. I mean, that issue is not in doubt because Kingsley himself has admitted that he gave, the money to them for lunch at a time and place where he had no business, doing so. But indeed, it was the great writer John Henry Clark who said that powerful people would never educate powerless people in what it means to take away the power from them. That the aim of powerful people is to stay in power by any means necessary. And that's exactly, what we are seeing. And it's quite scary because if we're not careful, we're getting to a point where we would have all manner of things happening in our elections. It is already happening. You've seen instances where in 2020, for instance, COVID-19 monies were given as freebies in the name of the presidential candidate of the MPP, But the fundamental point is that we have allowed these things to fester from party primaries. And that is why, Kwaku, over the years, I have been vehemently opposed to this system of having smaller electoral colleges where delegates can easily be induced with bribes, etc. Now, we've moved from situations where delegates are given money to where electorate in general elections. We've never seen this before, where electorates in general elections are actually given money to go and vote for a particular political party, in these elections. And they have even taken it a notch higher because somebody was asking me, but these people who are taking these monies can take the money and decide not to go and vote. The givers of these bribes, whether in party primaries or conferences or general elections, have taken it a notch higher by asking people to swear. So you have instances where they're either holding a Quran or a Bible, or they have a fetish priest who would be there watching you, swear before they would give you a plasma TV or money. In the case of a party political primary, in general elections, they are doing some of these things. And it's quite scary. It is quite scary because a lot of these monies are coming from public funds. If somebody is a public officer and it goes about sharing money the way that we see happening in our country, there could be only one conclusion. Because by their salary itself, they couldn't be living those kinds of lifestyles. And that is why we need a raft of things, a raft of reforms. One of them would be, lifestyle audit, having laws on party campaign financing, having laws on unexplained wealth, where if somebody in a party primary, somebody is a lecturer, all of a sudden the person can afford 1,000 cedis per delegate, and we don't seem to have a problem with it. So I'm saying it is a political class that is so comfortable because they know this is how they can, get power to perpetuate some of these anomalies.
Good point there from Rasenbach, and it's a good point to bring in Shandoff. Shandoff, the point has been made here and again that, listen, the people are demanding this because one, and Rasenbach confirmed that, listen, some of the money you take from the voters is simply coming from state coffers anyway, or from really some means that are just not what you would ordinarily expect from the pockets of these persons. So But surely that cannot be a justification for voters demanding money from persons who are seeking office simply because they think, listen, you're about to go into office for 4 years. I think you might even benefit. So let me exact my own pound of flesh.
I don't know how to properly characterize it, but perhaps let me just say that it is a conduct of holy unrighteousness. It is not good. It is not what is supposed to be the norm. It is not what is supposed to be the hallmark of our elections. But again,
you've contested for election before, and I'm told you were giving out money. But so I mean, the question is, what were you getting money from? The people thought that if you became SRC president or if you became whatever, you were going to enjoy. So it's time to exert our own pound of flesh. You've run an election before. You didn't. You certainly gave.
I don't know. I don't know why you would throw in such a baseless accusation, because my campaign was severely underfunded as compared to yours, which was lavishly sponsored. So if there's anybody who did that, perhaps it would be you. But let's move away from that point. I'm making the case that the truth of the matter is that it is holy unrighteousness. That's how I choose to call it. Holy unrighteousness, because yes, we can all agree that it is not proper. But then the truth of the matter is that if we don't take that 500,000 Ghana cedis, 500 Ghana cedis plus a refrigerator, a hamper, and fridges, what again is going to be the essence of exercising our franchise for whoever is vying for whatever portfolio? What again are we going to benefit at the end of the day? What is going to be the derived utility for queuing and voting? And for the fact that a lot of voters cannot anticipate the essence and the value of voting, they will rather settle with the immediate gratification and forget every, talk about corruption and how that we are staining the democratic process and all of that. So it begs the question of, or rather it sets the conversation about how the political class and our whole political configuration has become largely corrupt. It is a symptoms of a corrupt, if you like.
So the people are just as corrupt as the people they are voting for. The people they are
it is the entirety. It's the entirety of the country, because otherwise, if I were running for election, and let me use myself as an example, at a time where I wanted a portfolio, for example, I emphasized strongly that, anybody who wanted to vote for me should have recourse to my policy propositions, what I was bringing on board.
You never paid any money. You never paid shuttle. You never bought water for anybody.
Certainly not. There are gestures you may extend out of goodwill, but those are not inducive.
But that's exactly what Professor Kinsley Nyako said he did.
Those are not inducive gestures. Kwaku, if I am running for office and I am amplifying a campaign that says that, for example, I'm going to care for my constituents and I have the means to pay someone's fees weeks to the election, I would not say that, okay, that's the reality. I wouldn't also say that, okay, because that gesture may constitute an inducement, I'll withdraw or refrain from doing it. I'll go ahead. It is often the motive that is problematic. In his case, if he truly and properly wanted to sponsor the lunch, or as it were, tokenize them in any way, why couldn't it have been earlier? Or perhaps after they were done with the day's sweat, before he came in with that act of generosity. But coming in within the context and within the heat of the process itself, of course, you lend yourself to all the criticism in the world. But the point I was making earlier is the fact that it is a manifestation of the fake corruption and deprivation of the political system, which has to be cured. How do we cure it in the first place? We must get to a dispensation where the whole democratic exercise of election must be beneficial. I must know why I am voting. Kwaku, in wrapping up, if I ever get to understand that my vote counts, in the sense that when I vote, I'm going to receive a benefit that is useful at all, I wouldn't think about taking anything from anybody. And if I were contesting, I wouldn't think about giving anything to anybody, because at the end of the day, I can measure the utility. But if we vote for an MP this year, and the next time we are going to see him around is going to be the 4 years, that's 1,000 Ghana cedis. I will take it. I don't mind.
One would argue 1,000 CDs today, so that I see you in the next 4 years, is better than 0 CDs today.
Absolutely. It's the utility. It's an argument of utility.
I get the argument of utility that you make. But Papa and you joining me in the studio, we have some interesting comments that people are sharing with us, and we'll get into that in a minute. But Raymond, in a minute, how do you react to what Shanaf is saying? That, listen, the people, what they are doing is certainly wrong. In fact, it is criminal per Ghanaian law to buy or sell votes. But the moral question is also that, but people are rational beings, right? So they say, I'm not going to see you again the next 4 years or 8 years. You come today, I exact my pound of flesh. Delegates, they say that this is my cocoa season.
Thank you very much, people. And so for me, I really do share in the thoughts of Shandov, and that is really not so far from the reality. Indeed, it is a reality. We have, like I was making a point initially that we have these politicians who come to us with all the flamboyant promises and all those things. We vote for them, they go into power, and then we don't see any returns on, the votings or the confidence we repose in these people. And so for them, if you give us 1,000 cedis today and you don't bring any development, we are fine. What we eat is our concern for today. Like I've already indicated, we are now in a country where affording 3 square meal in Ghana has become a luxury, and so people are looking out for where they will find their next meal. Also, people, we must also admit that there is a certain deeply seated sense of corruption that has also engulfed our country, where there's a certain lack of action on the part of our leaders to clamp down on issues of corruption. And so today, corruption has become glaringly clear. It has become fashionable to be involved or engaged in the enterprise of corruption. And so we have our leaders engaged in all sorts of corruption enterprises who sometimes situations come to the fore, or there are issues, some of these anomalies come to the fore, and then we have them being let go off the hook, being cleared without any solid justification for why they have been left off the hook. And so the citizens feel that, if our leaders are looting our meager limited resources, then we must also have a fair share of it, or a little share of it. And so these are some of the reasons why we have the citizens, the electorate, demanding for monies in exchange for their votes.
Okay, I mean, good exposition there you make, Raymond, and I'll come to you. Just about going around the table and wrapping up. We'll go to Rasmus Barak as well. And Michael joins me in studio with some of the messages you've been sending. Well, so Michael, the messages have been coming in thick and fast. We also have a poll, interesting results. I'm going to put that out briefly. But Michael, what are people saying?
Well, let's start from Tantor Hill, where K is connecting with us. As a voter, I don't think I'm guilty of anything. Honestly, we know the politicians loot our resources, and we also take some back from them at every election. I always take money from them, but never voted for any. They have taken us to shrines and deities to swear oaths, etc. We're not selling anything. We are taking what is due us. I have made a part-time career out of this, and it pays. So that's K. Let's go to Prof from Tama. He says, please check the circumstance. He enveloped the money before getting it to the police station. Possibly, he did same at other stations but wasn't caught by the cameras. The intent was clear, predetermined to bribe election officials. Finally, let's go to Legon, where Charles says, what was the MP's role at the polling station? Well, he's explained that he was there as one of the new policies that the NPP is running, where they send some of their big wigs of a sword to monitor some polling station. So he continues, says, Ajisu was not his constituency. So what was the business going there? If the envelope had been given to MPP polling agent, it would have been somehow understandable. How could the MP give money to people recruited by the EC? The MP had to be prosecuted without further delay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Michael Papani. This one, Angelo says, well, I can take the money but vote for different candidates. You cannot buy my vote. Always, I'll take the money. So he says he'll take the money, he'll vote the way he wants. The question we put out today, Ghana's vote buying epidemic. Citizens and the electorate are as guilty as the politician a vote buyer. Interesting results. Real tech. People say that, listen, we take the money, we are guilty. Just as the politicians who buy the vote. 77% of Ghanaians who participated in this poll on our Twitter, our X console, say yes, we, the electorate, are as guilty, whilst 23% say, well, no, they are not guilty. So quite an interesting perspective that we see from our ex-console. But Rasmus Barak, will this ever end?
It has to end. It has to end because it is dangerous for our country. It has to end because it steals the future away from our youth. It has to end because people do these things. And you see, the Constitution also doesn't help us. If you take the requirements of the Constitution, for instance, it says the president must appoint majority of his ministers from parliament. So people would sell their houses, people would do anything, people would borrow just so that they can be ministers in the event that their political party is in power, so that they get to be ministers or deputies, etc. So we have to make serious reforms in addressing some of these challenges. But as I indicated earlier, when we make it an issue of only persons in positions of authority or responsibility being responsible for ending this, then it's never going to end. The job of fixing Ghana rests with you, rests with me, rests with him or her or every one of us. It's a collective duty, and that is why I feel strongly that the school system has failed, the churches and the mosques. I mean, who do we give, front row pews to in our churches and mosques? It is largely politicians who come in and make all manner of fat donations. We've never even stopped for a moment to ask where are these monies come from. We gleefully take these monies and clap year in, year out, and we seem to have normalized the way politicians do things in our country.
I mean, Ras Mubarak, not to be pessimistic, but
I'm sorry.
I'm saying not that I'm pessimistic about the possibility that this will ever end, but in the U.S., advanced democracies, we see these kind of things in some semblance of a sort. I mean, U.S. is battling with IPAC, the Israeli lobby that have so much of congressmen and women. So it seemed to me like Ghana is such a young democracy, and even the advanced democracies are struggling.
Kwaku, if I may make this point, and I'm very, very, I feel very strongly about it. I don't like us invoking examples from other jurisdictions, because these things happen in some of these jurisdictions. I don't know whether you followed the U.S. elections in the year 2020. Trump was giving public funds to, they call it checks, right, to American citizens. This was during COVID. And on these envelopes, his name, you can ask any U.S. citizen, they would confirm what I'm saying. His name was on these envelopes as if these monies were coming from his personal pocket.
I did follow that.
Okay? So you don't have a perfect system. But I admit that, indeed, others have made better progress. I mean, if you take the Scandinavian countries, they would have been a better example, than the United States of America or Britain, which are equally as corrupt as we are.
Yeah, exactly. So, Ras, the point I was making is that the US and UK, these are far advanced democracies. They just can't deal with this. And so it would appear that in a country that has so much poverty, that will be so difficult to deal with it, because you feel poverty when you go down to the rural areas, even in Accra. And these persons feel like this is the time to exact our pound of the flesh. That's how difficult it will be to fix it. It goes to the root of fixing poverty and all that.
So your question is valid, but there are bigger countries that have dealt with it. The fact that we haven't heard about them in our local media does not mean it is not happening. And I'm happy to cite Scandinavian countries as shining examples of good governance. And so if you want to look up to, some countries for better examples of how they are doing things, those are places to be looking up to. The US and the UK have not been able to deal with it decisively, because, our system is built on the UK system. It's built on the UK system. I maintain that we have inherited our corrupt practices of giving and taking bribes from the United Kingdom. All right? But we as a country have to determine for ourselves the kind of future we want to chart. The giver of the bribe is as guilty as the taker of the bribe. Now, if we're able to punish the person giving, the person receiving, I think we'll be making progress. Look at political party primaries. We have gift tax in the country, right? People give plasma TV, some go as far as giving motorbikes. Do the recipients of these gifts pay taxes on the gifts they are receiving? And yet nobody has taken it upon themselves to even educate those receiving these inducements. You hear people say, oh, it is laissez-faire. Come on. Let's call a spade and not a big spoon. What is happening in our politics is brazen bribery. Nothing more, nothing less. We are inducing votes and it's destroying our country, is enhancing corruption, is impoverishing people, because, you know, at the end of the day, these politicians who are giving these fat monies would have to get the money from somewhere.
From somewhere. I mean, good point you made there, Rasmus. Mohammed, are there some specific things that you have done in Nigeria to fix this? Or really, there's just really helplessness? People are like, oh, well, let's just go on. Have there been concrete measures to deal with the menace in Nigeria?
Yeah, there have been concrete measures, but only that in most cases is not enough. You understand? And unfortunately, again, the judiciary that is supposed to uphold the law and protect the common man is very much complicit. For instance, what our politicians do that is very common, very, very common is, for instance, they steal or they are alleged, let me use the word, they are alleged to have stolen billions. They run to the court and get an injunction that they should not be prosecuted or the law enforcement should not arrest them. And they get it. In fact, there are so many cases like that. There's a serving governor that just left office a few months ago. He's been on the radar of the AFCC and the same thing. So many cases, you know, and so this is why I said, even though, yeah, in some part the government is trying, like instituting agencies like the EFCC, Economic and Financial Crime Commission, you know, to fight this. And there are so many agencies as well. But because other parts of, you know, arms of government are complicit, like particularly the judiciary, I tell you, it becomes meaningless and effortless, you know, and fruitless, sorry. All the efforts being put in place by either government, by civil societies, by pressure groups, and so on and so forth. But what is a little bit encouraging is the awareness now, particularly via social media. You know, the young people are trying to really deviate from this. In fact, like a point somebody made earlier to say, when they give you this money, we collect and don't vote for you. But the irony again is that these politicians have devised other means. If they give you, before they give you this money, like all of you have been saying in the studio and elsewhere, they make you swear to something. You know, if it's really tangible, if they know that you hold that influence, they make you either swear to something or they hold your family to ransom and so on and so forth. So it's you know, there are just so many webs. It's a kind of web that it's so difficult to get out of. And sometimes, even if they give you the money, or maybe people money and they don't vote for them, they have their way of bribing the electoral bodies, you know, to get what they want. So, you know, you can see that the situation is so cumbersome, is so challenging, is so difficult that it becomes really worrisome how particularly Africans can get out of this web of corruption.
It's almost a hopeless talk. Shandov, in 30 seconds, 45 seconds, will we ever get to the place where voters will listen to the people they are going to vote for? Just listen to them by virtue of what they say they are coming to do and go and vote without making any demand of them.
Well, as for that reality, it is certainly in sight, except that it would not be a manifestation now. It's not something that we should be anticipating in the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years even, because as of now...
That's really not inspiring.
Well, yes, it is not inspiring. I want to be real with the situation on the ground. Our democracy is still evolving. We are still coming into terms with appreciating the essence of democracy and what it requires from us. Even in advanced jurisdictions such as the United States of America, I mean, we were just hearing how that practices of this nature are not even out of their jurisdiction. So how much more we, the learners. What I think, however, is that we should be able to devise a mechanism, if not to rid it out of our system entirely, it should be manageable so that we would not see such blatant, disrespectful spectacles like what we witnessed in Ejisu. How do we do that? It is practically very simple, and I don't have time. Otherwise, I would have gone into what the Office of the Special Prosecutor could have done. We saw a similar thing during the NDC parliamentary primaries. The young lady who was, throwing money. That was my schoolmate anyway. We were in the same class some time back. She gave an explanation that, of course, he said yes. As of now, the Office of the Special Prosecutor has engaged her. Blah 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 blah. But what have we done as of now? So the systems, the institutions are not working. That is why forever we may not get there.
Raymond Tamaklo, thank you very much for connecting with us. Park with Shandoff also, you just heard him make the good point there about how we may never end this. And then Mohammed from Nigeria, thank you so much for sharing the perspective from Nigeria. And then Ras Mubarak, thank you so much. It's always insightful hearing from you on the show, the kind of perspectives you bring. And Andy Dusty is up next with the library. For those of you who join us on text, thank you very much. My name is Kwaku Asante. Next week, we're back again on this show, Ghana Connect, with some more interesting conversations about how we can all come together and develop our nation. The library is up next. Don't go away. It's the best to listen to on a Friday night.